Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleone Crawford. Welcome back to another episode of Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental health challenges to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleone Crawford. Well, guys, we got a special guest with us today. We have Deborah Williams with us. Who is Deborah Williams? Well, Deborah Williams is a Christian and a mother to 3 children. She completed her studies at Durham College and passed the Law Society exam and is currently waiting on her license. She is also the lead in praise and worship at her church. So with that said, I'm going to present to you Deborah Williams. Deborah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much for asking. I appreciate it. So Deborah, tell me a little bit more about what you do, about your profession, what you do, and how you got started.
Okay. So as you mentioned, I am a mother first, or I would say I'm a wife, if we were to talk about order. I am a wife first. I've been married for about 12 years, going on 12 years. I am a mother of 3. I have a passion for law. And currently right now I work for a corporate office in the Durham region. Yes, and also I am an active member at my church. It's located in Scarborough, Global Apostolic Ministries, under the leadership of Pastor Alan Todd. And my role at that church is I am the lead for the praise and worship. So you will see me every Sunday, singing praise and worship songs, leading worship services, and so forth.
Awesome. I love that. It's very important to be active in your church and to give back to the Lord. It's really, really important. So I'm glad that you do that. So with that said, we are going to move into the mental health piece now that we know what you do, we're going to move into the mental health piece of the interview. So, Deborah, what is your mental health diagnosis and when were you diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I would say around 2016, 2017. And how that came about, I started to feel, all these different pains in my body. And, every time I would go to the doctor, they couldn't find anything. They would send me home. They would tell me, just go have a glass of wine, have a nice hot bath. It's nothing. And then eventually, my doctor, she stated, she gave me like a test. She had her laptop open during one visit, and she asked me a bunch of questions, and I answered her. And then she said, okay, yes, you are, depressed, and here are the pills. She gave me a prescription, and that was the beginning.
Okay. So 2016, 2017 is the beginning of finding out that you were living with depression and anxiety.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So tell us about your mental health story of resilience. What did you have to overcome? What did you do? What, when you found out, like what happened? Walk us through the chronological view of your experience and your journey.
Sure. So prior to the actual, medical diagnosis, I'm going to say that, the signs were always there, but, I never focused on it. It never came to my mind that, hey, maybe this is what they say it is or what they said it was back in 2016, 2017. Just little things would trigger me, like specifically around the anxiety, just the unknown, anything unknown, right? That if somebody could call my phone and I'm looking on my phone, it's a private call or it's a number I don't know, my heart starts pounding. I'm like, what is this? Who is this? You know? The depression side of it, it's kind of hard for me to identify or describe. And I know that, you know, the medical field, they have their own definition. They know this, they know the symptoms and so forth. But for me, I didn't know. So I can't really pinpoint, you know, what the symptoms were. I can only say that, you know, I had a lot of down days, crying, and, you know, there would be mornings I'd just wake up and cry, right? Not eating, you know, a lot of thinking. I was too busy thinking, right? So the thinking took up my time and my life to the point where that it stopped me from eating, right? It got in the way of me eating. So it's kind of hard for me to say, you know, as you asked for the chronological events. I can definitely speak to the anxiety. I do recall, you know, I don't know when it started, but I remember, you know, little episodes. You know, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and this is more on the spiritual side. And I know, you know, some of the listeners, they may not understand the spiritual side of it, but I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would hear my fire alarm going off, right? And this happened to me maybe, I would say, at least once a month. And when I wake up, you know, I'm not waking up just normally waking up. I'm jumping out of my sleep and my heart is pounding out my chest and I'm running into the kitchen. And when I get into the kitchen, there's no fire and there's no fire alarm. So that consistently happened to me for a period of time. And I don't know if that is what triggered the anxiety. I'm not sure. But eventually I recognized that those particular episodes, it wasn't normal, right? And I knew that it was definitely spiritual, because who wakes up to a fire alarm going off in their home? They jump up out of their sleep and they run into the kitchen, right? Because I thought my kitchen was on fire and there's no fire alarm, right? So eventually I had to come to myself, and, you know, and I know, you know, with the help of God, he brought it to me, and I went to, you know, some people in the church and I said, you know, this is happening. At the time we were having what we call cell groups, where every week, you know, we come together in different parts of the GTA. So if you live in Durham, the Durham people would come together. If you live in Toronto, the Toronto people would come together. People within my church, I should say, sorry. And I went to them and I confessed and I said, this is what's going on, right? I'm waking up, and, you know, they prayed. And when they prayed, after they prayed, it never happened again, right? But, you know, that was one thing that God resolved, but there was other little things that was causing anxiety. So leading up to the diagnosis, I remember just around that time, you know, I was getting dreams. My father, one time he called me and he said, I had a bad dream about you, that you were sick. And that, you know, triggered the anxiety. And I remember I was in and out of the hospital. I was, you know, at one point I called the ambulance. I felt like I was going to die. And I remember the ambulance man, he came, and when he put me in the ambulance truck, he put like a little clip on my finger, and he said to me, do you suffer from anxiety? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? You know, this was before my family doctor diagnosed me. And he said, I can tell you suffer from anxiety, because they have a screen. I don't even know what it's called, but, you know, they clip something on your finger, and I think it checks for vitals.
Yeah, like it's a barometer.
I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know what it's called. But he showed me on the screen, you know, the thing that goes up and down, up and down.
Yes.
I don't even know what it's called. But anyways, he showed me that he could tell that I was having an anxiety attack just based on what he was seeing on the screen. And I dismissed it, right? I dismissed it because I was like, no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to the hospital, I remember I was waiting and I was thinking they were going to rush me in, and I was waiting. And I remember looking up on the screen. I don't know if anybody has been to an emergency room. Sorry. But if anybody has been to an emergency room, um, they have your name on a screen, and then, they call you and they tell you, okay, um, it's your turn to go and see the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, when I looked up on the screen, I saw my name. Sorry. I saw my name and I saw anxiety beside it. And I got so upset. I called my mother and I said, you know what, come pick me up because this is a joke. Right. So that was me basically denying what they were saying and what eventually later down the road my doctor was my doctor diagnosed me with. And she eventually that same day, right, she took a test on her computer. I don't know if she was on Google, but she asked me some questions and she said, okay, yep, according to this, you are depressed and here's some pills.
Wow.
She instantly gave me a prescription. And in my head, I was like, no. By the time I walked out of that doctor's office, I crumpled up the paper. I ended up just throwing it in the garbage. But it was depression and anxiety. And I was just like, no. And it's so funny because it's not really funny, but when she gave me that prescription, she informed me of the symptoms that come with the taking the medication. And she named, I don't know if she named like 10 to 15. And
Right.
then she said to me, and if you stop taking it, here's another more symptoms that can happen to you, right? So if you start taking these pills, you may have suicidal thoughts, but if you stop, you may complete the act and kill yourself. So the symptoms are more worse trying to get off of the medication than starting the medication, right? So anyways, I already made it up in my mind, as soon as she started writing me up the prescription, even though I sat there and I was like, okay. I already knew within myself, I'm not taking no pill. Okay. Number one, I have Jesus, right? And if I put my trust, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that medication it doesn't work for all.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only speak to myself and my faith in God and
Mm-hmm.
what God has instructed me, right? I already knew that I wasn't going to take it. I already knew that, you know what, this is something that I need to bring to the Lord. Number one, it's a spiritual thing, right? We are, and this is just my opinion, we are spirit beings having a human experience, right? So a lot of the times we're treating the body, the physical body, right? And sometimes you need to treat the physical body, right?
Right.
But then other times you need to treat the spirit, right? So that is a little bit of my of the chronological order of events. The anxiety thing, for a long time, I shunned it. I turned a blind eye to it. I was like, no, that's not it. That's not me, right? And then eventually, I had to come to myself and basically see how I was reacting to certain things. People calling,
Mm-hmm.
like something as simple as somebody calling my phone and I don't know who it is. It's an unknown number, private or just an unknown number. And my heart's pounding. That's not normal, right?
Right.
So I think with me, I had to identify and admit and accept that I did have anxiety issues and that I was depressed. Yes.
Yeah, that's an important part. The acceptance and the just coming to a place where you are not in denial of your sickness, because you can't get help until you first come to acceptance. Um, yeah, that's a very important part towards our healing journey is the acceptance part. So my next question to you So what did you have to do to overcome or bounce back from your low points? List all the resources that helped you.
Yes, most definitely. So I would say, like, for me right now, I'm not where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when we think about overcoming, we think that, it's behind us and we've moved on and all is well, right? But I believe that it's always a work in progress, and you always have to work at maintaining, right? Maintaining whatever it is you're trying to maintain. So I'm trying to maintain not having another anxiety attack or being anxious or fearful or fall back into depression, right? So one thing that I have learned um, is that prayer is very key. And as I said before, accepting, reality, confessing, if you know someone, one or two people that you can confide in, right? People that can, bear you up in prayer, or encourage you, even people that have been there, right? um, Connecting yourself with those people, that's what I have learned to do and have done. And also training my thoughts, right? um, that I believe that's one thing that has helped me as well.
Mm-hmm.
um, Reading the word and constantly getting the word inside of me, right? Because that is what will help to block um, or counteract whatever thoughts or feelings I may be having, right? So it's a constant battle. And again, I'm speaking from the spiritual side of it. It is a constant battle,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can never let down your guard. And when you do let down your guard, that's when you give the enemy room to come in, right? So you constantly have to be at it constantly, right? And I feel, and again, I'm speaking from the spiritual side, you always be um, on guard until you die, until Jesus comes, right? Um,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And what are three things you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
Um, I think for me, just finding someone, you know, finding someone that, how can I say this? So there are many people, and I'm going to speak from the church body side or aspect of it. There are many people in the church that are suffering. They're dying spiritually, right? They have anxiety, they have these, they have depression, you know, and some of them, or a lot of them, don't have the strength or the boldness to go and seek help, right?
Right.
And I strongly believe, God has put people in the church with different giftings, right? And I know it's a two-way street, right? On one side, you need to go seek the help, but on the other side, somebody should be there. There should be a watchman. There should be somebody there that can discern, right? And say, okay, you're going through something. Let me pray for you. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the times we're just so used to, going to church, singing and praising and hallelujah, praise God, and then you are out the door, right? Nobody is watching, nobody is being vigilant, nobody is discerning, or people are not, operating in their gift,
Right.
right? Um, and every church body, it doesn't matter what church you go to, right? There's one body, but every church, every local, every assembly has individuals in there. God has placed them in there to watch and to pray and to discern and to expose and so forth, right? So I wish that, and this may sound selfish or arrogant, I don't know, but I wish that there was somebody there that could have seen what I was going through, seen beyond my smiles,
Yes.
and say, sis, something is up, or you know what I'm saying? And I believe God speaks, God shows, right? But people are not operating in their gifts. So on one side, I could have, for example, with the issue with the fire alarm, I could have gone to, people in the church much sooner and asked them to pray. But on the other side, I believe that the church has a responsibility, right, to also do their part and to be, to operate in their giftings and so forth, to rescue the lost, rescue the perishing,
Yes.
pull your brother, your sister out of the fire. That's in, I believe, in the book of James, right? So it's a two-way, street. And I wish that I was more alert to, because if you're more alert to what is happening around you or inside of you, then you would move forward and say, okay, now let me take the steps. Like in my example with the fire alarm, once I recognized it, I said, okay, let me go to my church brethren and have them pray for me.
Okay. Were there any other points that you things that you wish you had available other than people available?
So specifically to, in regards to the anxiety and depression, as I said, there's a lot of people in the church that are suffering from, these things. And I believe that every church should have a department that deals with, whatever you want to call it, mental health, right? And I think I find that we don't have it because I don't know if I'm saying this right, but we're kind of we're overly spiritual.
Yeah.
We rather shama shama and run the aisles and disregard the mental issues that we are facing. A lot of people, for example, me, I was going to church. There was a time when I was going to church and I was screaming and I was hollering and I was praising God and having a good time, and then I was coming home to my pit, right? So I believe that every church, we have the women's department, we have the brothers, or the women's ministry, we have the brothers ministry, we have the young people's ministry, we have the children's ministry. We need to have a ministry that focuses on people's mental, their state of mind, right? Yeah. The depression, the anxiety, whatever issues that they are having and they are internalizing, right? We need to have a ministry or a department, whatever you want to call it. We need to have something specific that deals with that. And I'll just leave it there.
Hey, girl, you said it. You said it. And that's the reason why I'm in the process of creating what I'm creating, which we'll announce in the next few weeks. But yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So, what words of hope can you give to our listeners? What would you tell someone who's been where you've been?
I would tell them, with God, all things are possible, right? Number one. Number two, God is a keeper. When I was in my pit, I can't even tell you when I came out. I can't tell you the day. It's just, God just has a way of just bringing you out, right? So I would tell people, number one, keep God first, right? When, and it's coming to me, when Peter was walking on water, right? As long as he was focused on God, he was able to do the miraculous. Right? And then as soon as he took his eye off of God, he began to sink, right? But God caught him. Even though he began to sink, God caught him and he said, Lord, I perish, but God caught him, right? So the best thing that I know to do is to keep my eyes on Jesus. The praying is vital. It's a struggle, but it's vital. And praying doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on your knees with your hands together. You can talk to God the same way I'm talking to you, right?
True.
Relationship, God talks, you listen, You talk, he listens, and so forth, right? So putting God first is number one. Your faith in him, definitely. That would probably come before. That's number one, actually. You have to believe, right? Getting into the word, reading the scriptures, that definitely helps. That is like that is treatment, spiritual treatment, right? In the medical field, in the world, they'll give you medication shots and stuff like that. Your medication, your spiritual medication is the word of God, right? You feed your spirit, right? Another thing that I would say is just speak positive about yourself, right? If you have to write down positive affirmations, even when you're in your, whatever it is, if it's depression, anxiety, write down positive things about yourself, right? Write down, I will get over this. I will be healed by this. And you just keep saying it, and eventually it will manifest, because death and life is in the power of the tongue. And then lastly, I would say is it's important to connect with someone. And you don't have to connect with everyone. You don't need to stand up and, find the highest mountain and say, I'm having these issues. Find someone that you can trust, right? Pray about that if you're not sure who. Find someone that is seasoned. Find someone that has been there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's also important that, while I'm saying that, it's important that we testify, right?
Yeah.
Overcome by our testimonies, right? And these days, I'm sorry to say this, but we're not testifying. We're not telling people what God has done for us and how he has, brought us through, right? Throughout the Bible, the Bible is a testimony itself. Look at the children of Israel, right? We use that a lot, and we say, oh, God split the Red Sea. That was their testimony. What is your testimony, right? Definitely connecting with someone that is it's very, very, very important. We need each other, right? Iron sharpeneth iron, right? Do not isolate yourself. Do not think that you're in this alone, right? It's very important. Don't stay away from, church. If you are in the church, if you're not in the church, connect yourself to someone that is a positive person, right? And it's there's a word I'm looking for. They're very optimistic.
Yes.
Right? You may see something bad and they can just turn it around. And you have those people they're very good at it. They're just good at turning negativity into something positive. They always find something positive in the negative, right? So that's very important. Your surroundings, like, you got to be careful of what you're watching. That's another thing. You got to be careful of the music that you're listening to, right? The shows that you're watching, a lot of it is junk, right? And fasting is another thing. And I think I will leave it there. Fasting is very important if you're in the church. Fasting is good for people that are not in the church as well, right? It does something to you physically, your physical body. And I've learned that a lot of the food that we are intaking as well, it triggers, our mental, right? There's a chemical side to it, right? So if you're eating filth, you're going to feel like filth. You're going to feel bad about yourself, right? Try a diet, go on a fast. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to not eat any food. Cut out the sugar, right? Cut out the sugar for a week, 2 weeks, 21 days, right? And I think that's about it.
Okay. Well, those are some really good words of hope. You can definitely give that to them. So now we are going to do a switch in the interview.
Oh.
Yeah, as you can see behind me, there's a book. It says The Music of My Life. That's my book that I wrote about bipolar and music therapy. So with that said, I'd like to ask you this question. What type of music do you like?
Okay. So of course, definitely the gospel music. I believe nothing is wrong, and this is just my personal opinion. I don't believe I believe there's nothing wrong with clean secular music,
Exactly.
right? music that has a story behind it. Even, there's secular music that you can, that you can relate to, right? So I'm definitely a gospel lover. Before I got into the church, I used to listen to every kind of music. I used to listen to country, rock, R&B, whatever it was, right? But my go-to is smooth jazz. So I love smooth jazz. And the story behind that, my uncle passed in 2009.
Okay.
And I remember, coming back, to where he was living. He was, at the time, he actually died in my room, in my bedroom, in my sister's bed. We had a bunk bed. And so when he died, all of his things were in my bedroom. And I remember coming home. I don't know if it was the day of the funeral, after the funeral. And I remember just looking down, and I'm picturing it in my head right now. And I just remember looking down, and I saw his boom box, for all those, remember the boom box with the two big speakers on the side. And then you had, in the middle, you had all those little, you can put in your tape, you can put on a CD. I don't think there was a CD back then, but anyways. And I saw he had two tapes. He had cassettes. He had Kenny G and he had BB and CC Winans. And I put in the Kenny G. I love BB and CC. But I put in the Kenny G, and that comforted me. Right? That was, just hearing the music, his music, what he loved,
yes,
comforted me, because he died very suddenly. It was unexpected. He was just found in the bed dead.
Wow.
Right? And he was very young. So around that time, I remember just crying. Like, I can't tell you when I stopped crying. But his music comforted me. His selection of music comforted me. And we're going on now 20 years. 20 years this month, actually. This is his anniversary. Wow. For 20 years, I've been listening to smooth jazz. So I'll listen to, Paul Hardcastle, a lot of Kenny G, a lot of Paul Hardcastle. Paul Hardcastle, he goes hard. He's really, really good. But that music, there's one song in particular from Paul Hardcastle called Peace on Earth. There's no lyrics, but it just calms me. It just puts me in a place of calm and rest. And it just, sometimes it takes me places, right? Good places, right? Humbling places. So yeah, it's definitely, I love smooth jazz. Love.
Cool. That's awesome. So if you were to think of a song that best describes your journey, what would it be and why?
Again, so well, so there's this song called, oh my, what is it called? I think it's from Elevation Worship. It's called Do It Again.
Do It Again.
Do It Again. And it's from, I believe it's called Do It Again.
Okay.
And it's the lyrics that, when I was in my pit, and when I tell you I was in a pit, I was in a pit. Okay? Nobody could get me out but God. Nothing could get me out but God. Right? And I had this song on repeat. And I'll just share a little bit of the lyrics here. Okay. I was able to find it. And it says, walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. For you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. And then the song transitions to, and this is the part, like, I remember when I used to play this part, or when this part came on, I would just get crazy. And it says, I've seen you move, you've moved mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. And this song, I would say this was my pit song, right?
Okay.
Even though I was in the pit, this song, it was a reminder to me. It gave me strength in that moment, right? It reminded me that, number one, Jesus is a keeper. And number two, I won't always be in this pit, right? So this song, I mean, this song is I don't even know the word, but this song, I mean, anybody that's going through, a lot of times we listen to music and we love it for the beat, but what is the song saying? What is the song saying? Can you relate to that song? Right? If you can't relate to the song, what's the point? Right? So
I see.
Yes, Do It Again by Elevation Worship, I believe.
Cool. Love it. Love it. So, my friend, how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
Yes. So I'm currently I have two social medias, business social medias. One is Her Modest Closet. So I love, fashion. So that is my heart from a little girl. I always had a heart for fashion. So it's Her Modest Closet. You can find me on Instagram. And it's just it's the handle is Shop Her Modest Closet, exactly how it sounds. And then I just started a Christian marketing agency that aims to build and strengthen, the Christian community, entrepreneurs, like yourself, like Resilient Minds 365. And my handle for that one is Christian Community Markets. So just how it sounds, Christian Community Markets.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Well, Deborah, it's been a pleasure having you as a guest on our show. I appreciate you being so transparent and so honest with us and sharing your journey with our audience. You've definitely been a joy to have as a guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really, at first I was nervous and I was like, oh my God, this is my first podcast, but I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you for that opportunity. It's therapeutic for me.
Yes, it's very cathartic.
So I hope our listeners will, be inspired, aspired, and just, the last thing I would say is just trust God.
Amen. Love it. And to all you resilient minds out there, until next time, please subscribe to us on all our platforms. And don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also, join the community Resilient Minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at cleonicrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. And if you can think of one person that will receive value from today's show or connect with Deborah's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleone or Resilient Minds 365, and today's guest at Shop Her Modest Closet or Christian Community Markets on Instagram. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, thrive, and live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleone Crawford, and I'm signing off.